If you want to find out what's going on in politics at midday, this should be your first port of call. That's why I'm bringing you up to speed with the biggest happening in politics right here on Lunchtime Politics. Welcome, I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Let's get started with the headlines. David Mack-led National Working Committee of the ADC insists its leadership subsists, disagrees with the Court of Appeal judgment on state congresses, head to the Supreme Court. We ask what lies ahead for the opposition party. Disputed Director General of the said fictitious Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, Prince Adeyemi, raises concern over his life, says his life is under threat, seeks presidential protection. And Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State calls on the international community to investigate circumstances surrounding the abduction of the children and teachers in the Rire local government area of Oyo State. Thanks again for joining us. We're spoiled for choice as to what we will deal with, but our focus will be on politics. But before all of that, it appears the governor of Oyo State is suspecting something beyond what we may know may have played out in the abduction of children and their teachers in the Rire local government area. Governor Seyi Makinde is now calling for investigation beyond our shores into the abduction of the now rescued teachers and students from the Rire local government area, and is seeking for measures that must be taken to ensure no community is ever subjected to such an ordeal again.
The reunion of these children and teachers with their families does not mark the end of this painful chapter. It marks the beginning of another responsibility, our collective responsibility to establish the truth. The circumstances surrounding this incident are sufficiently grave and unusual to warrant independent scrutiny beyond our domestic institutions. I therefore, with a full sense of responsibility as the Executive Governor of Oyo State, call on the appropriate international human rights and accountability mechanism, including those within the United Nations system, to closely examine the facts surrounding this abduction and the circumstances of its resolution. Such scrutiny is not intended to undermine our institutions. Rather, it is intended to reinforce public confidence that the truth will be established and that every person found to bear responsibility, regardless of office, influence, or affiliation, will be held accountable.
What does the governor know that we don't know? We will find out in due course. But let's talk about the claims that Mr. Adeyemi, who claims to be the Director General of the disputed Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council, saying his withdrawal from the public is due to a threat to his life rather than an attempt to evade law enforcement agencies. He said this on our program, Politics Today.
I have intelligence reports to several attempts to my life, honestly. You know, I requested Mr. President to set up an independent panel the last time I came out to do the rejoinder. Mr. President should please set up an independent panel to look into assassination attempts to my life and to look deeply into the material death of Mr. Kalimola. Mr. Shenubori is talking about the late Kalimola again. Nobody is talking about the mysterious death of Mr. Kalimola. The hotel, the authority claimed the man got inferno and died has been demolished. They're just trying to clean up the evidences. So anything I need pertaining to the office, once I say, oh, you want to do X, Y, Z, you say, okay, you will reach out to chief. Then, lo and behold, you just say, write the letter to X, Y, Z, and I will do. Truly, everything will be perfect. They will grant me the request.
Now, away from that, you know what appears to be a setback for the African Democratic Congress, ADC, the Court of Appeal Abuja Division has affirmed the judgment of the Federal High Court Abuja, which restrained INEC from recognizing or participating in any state congresses organized by the committees appointed by the Senator David Mark-led caretaker leadership of the ADC. A three-member panel of the Justices of the Appellate Court, in a split decision of 2-1, upheld the restraining order issued by the trial court judge, Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik, on April the 29th, 2026. The Appellate Court, in the majority judgment delivered by Justice Okonabank, further held that the order of the trial court judge, stating that the responsibility of conducting state congresses of political parties rests with elected state executive committees, not with the national leadership. While Justice Abang and Justice Donatus Okorowo gave the majority judgment, the presiding justice of the three-member panel, Justice Abba Mohammed, gave a dissenting judgment, held that the actions of the respondent was premature as they failed to exhaust the internal dispute resolution of the party before filing a suit. And that's our core conversation, the battle for the soul of the opposition. They've been complaining that your ruling party is responsible for this multiple litigation. People are saying you haven't done your own housekeeping yet. So it depends on who you are listening to. So I have two guests joining me, a constitutional lawyer and acting dean, College of Law, Christland University. Dr. Kayode Akinshola joins me virtually. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Geoffrey, and a beautiful afternoon to you.
Well, sir, I remember Ayo Dele Adio is a member of the ADC running for the House of Representatives for Etiosa Federal Constituency. Ms. Adio, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Always good to be here.
Let me start with the doctor. Doctor, let's look at what you interpreted, because I have looked at so many of these. I've looked at the constitution of the ADC. We haven't gotten the CTC or even an enrolled order what I played out at the appellate court. We hope to get some today so we can give some backing to the legal reasoning of their Lord Justices, both the majority and the dissenting. But as face value of what is reported, what do you think this judgment means? Why I asked that question is that the leadership of the ADC is saying we subsist, while the trial court has said whatever you conducted is null and void and has been upheld by the courts of appeal. So what does this mean in law as we speak?
Of a truth, as at this afternoon, the ADC, led by David Mark leadership, they have one option, which is to go to the Supreme Court, appealing judgments arising from that. But of the truth, Supreme Court, they are going to find either 5-man panel or 7-man panel. They are going to find themselves in a very tight situation. Don't forget that some of these justices too, they are human beings. And of the truth, when you look at our laws, it depends from the angles at which you are looking at it. Naturally speaking, party affairs, political party affairs, should not go to court, of the truth, because it's supposed to be an internal affair of any political party in Nigeria. But where there are constitutional infractions, as you have it in the case of this ADC at the moment, Article 23 of that ADC constitution provides that the state officers, the elected in the local government as well as the wards, they will have a term of 8 years for a maximum of 2 terms. And as such, they are yet to explore this before they were actually disbanded, which necessitated this action. This was a constitutional infraction of their political party. When you look at section 2231A of our Nigerian Constitution, truth be told, INEC has power to regulate, and as such, they have acted. But when you look at the sum total of these judgments, to me, my alignment will still be that of the minority judgment that was actually delivered by Justice Abba Mohammed. I mean, he's saying that this is actually an internal affair. They've not explored the entire mechanism, and as such, court should not interfere. But if I was speaking like a lawyer this afternoon, the court has the right and the power. Where there are constitutional infractions, don't forget, Section 1 subsection 3 of the Constitution provides that if any law in Nigeria is inconsistent with the Constitution, Constitution shall be supreme. Any other law, to the extent of its consistency, shall be null and void. So, political or electoral matters and laws, they are not exempted. And as such, if there are issues or constitutional infractions by any political parties, any party has the right to proceed to courts and seek redress.
All right, Doctor.
Speaking as
my sincere apologies if I may come in just an update, because there are so many questions I have. Well, we're going to look at the facts, the legal questions, and judicial reasoning if the time allows us, comparing it to others. Mr. Adio will come to you, but Doctor will land on his thought, because I need to let our viewers know who are on DSTV that this is only on DSTV. We'll be crossing over for our live coverage of the National Assembly Library Trust Fund. That's the NAS Open Week taking place right there in the nation's capital, Abuja. So this is only on our DSTV platform. All other platforms will be on the program Lunchtime Politics. Doctor, you may land on your thoughts.
So my thought here as a legal practitioner is that the ADC-led party by David Mark, the only option they have at this moment is for them to go to Supreme Court. Though they have argued that the judgment of the Court of Appeal only relates to that, the convention, that actually that April 14th convention, that every other thing doesn't really affect them. No, I do not want to agree with that. They need to approach the Supreme Court, explore other options, and see whether Supreme Court will be able to lay this matter to rest. Situations where political parties, their officers are being elected by a court for them, which naturally should be an internal mechanism, an internal affair. That court. That's the reason why we have provision. The right of any individual, freedom of association. If you don't like party A, you can go to party B. We do have all of this in our laws, but we begin to have several constitutional infractions, which is actually making people to go. All
right, Doctor. Yes. Let me bring in Mr. Adio, who is a politician here as well. I don't know, Mr. Adio, whether you feel that your candidacy from your party is under threat. Maybe you answer that question in responding to what has played out with your party. So I'm going to ask you a political question, and for you to also look at what has played out in court. Do you think that if we agree without conceding that the APC, for instance, is responsible for all the things that the opposition is going through because they've denied consistently, do you think they have the opposition like the ADC in the place where they should be, where few months to election, less than 6 months to election, the party is still trying to survive to a large extent, perhaps in the eyes of the public, than actually thriving to push back on some of the policies that they feel are counter policies that will make Nigerians fare better? Two questions in one.
Well, thank you, Godfrey. First, I would say that, it's clear to everyone who's been a student of politics in Nigeria that the APC would rather not have a free and fair election coming in 2027 because they have absolutely nothing to campaign on. Poverty has hit the roof. Insecurity has been rife. Unemployment has been the worst since the 1970s and perhaps the 1980s. Food insecurity is widespread. Hunger is rising in the country. So there's absolutely no compelling narrative to go to the elections with. The president is extremely unpopular, and you can understand why they would rather use several other unscrupulous means to ensure that you don't have a credible alternative on the ballot. Having said that, I think it's important to stress some of the issues that are being litigated on, and perhaps examine what the judicial decision was yesterday. First, like Professor Kayode rightfully said, the issue at hand was that state chairmen went to court to argue that their tenures had not expired per se, and secondly, that they were the rightful persons to conduct congresses. Firstly, it's important to stress that the argument they were making as at April, their tenure was going to expire by the 12th of May. So whether or not that decision had gone any other way, the truth is their tenure had expired by the 12th of May. And well, basically what we're doing at this moment, particularly on that front, is just an academic exercise because they have also deposed in court that their tenures were going to expire on the 12th of May. Secondly, and even more importantly, they have gone to argue that it's the state's chairmen that have the powers to conduct congresses. Now, that is very laughable for any politician because it's, first of all, in terms of convention, as you have seen, if you're not even a politician, there is no political party in this country that conducts congresses or convention at the state level. It is absolutely the purview of the NEC at the center of the party to conduct congresses. So it's a complete aberration to go and make the argument that states are responsible for the conduct of congresses. It is not even contained in the constitution of the party to make such a fallacious argument to say that states are responsible for conducting congresses. The third point I also like to make is that it is clear, and I made this argument with you, Godfrey, the last time we were discussing status quo antebellum, and things like that, and when we're also discussing the Justice Lifu judgment, that it is clear that several judicial decisions have stressed the fact that internal matters of the political party should be dealt with internal mechanisms in that political party, and that the Electoral Act has also gone a step further to also codify the law to say that inter-party affairs are non-justiciable, right? But I also concede to Professor Kaide that yes, when there are issues that infringes on the Constitution, then you can make a case in court. But in this particular instance, it is not in the space. It is not in our Constitution that state congresses conduct. State chairmen conduct congresses. Secondly, the tenure of this chairman had expired by the 12th of May. And the third final point I'd like to make here, before I yield the mic, is that these congresses have nothing to do with the part of the candidates that have emerged, because we emerged largely through a primary process that party members at the ward level exercise their franchise to vote me, for instance, as the candidate for Etiosa, and to also vote the presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, which you all witnessed. So it was not congresses that nominated the candidates when it was an indirect, when we had indirect election, indirect primaries. That was not the case. And so the judgment really has no bearing on the candidates that are.
My apologies. Yes, I hope I can squeeze in 2 more questions each for both of you before we wrap up. But we'll need to take a short break. We'll be right back. Guys, stay with us. Welcome back. I have with me my guest, constitutional lawyer and acting dean, College of Law, Chrisland University, Dr. Kayode Akinshola. Also joining us is Ayodele Adio, is the ADC House of Representatives candidate for Etiosa Federal Constituency in Lagos. Gentlemen, thanks. Doctor, let me stay with you for a moment. And whenever I ask this legal question, this always comes to mind. I do not know whether we need to, let me say that carefully. Does the judiciary have some blame to share in some of these things? I know that they're like a shop. If you don't approach them, they're not going to sell you nothing. So to that extent, you can't really, they didn't invite you. You came to them. But 2 cases married with this one. For instance, Justice Peter Lifu has ruled that Sule Lamido, the former governor of Jigawa, said his right was infringed upon constitutionally, that he had he was supposed to, he said he wanted to run for chairmanship of the party at the national level, and they said no, we have a consensus. He said no, I don't agree to consensus, so that naturally I should be given a chance. To that extent, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with Justice Peter Lifu in the trial court. And then we also have Justice Joyce Abdul Malik. There's a gentleman called Dagogo Fubara, who, the same situation, he wanted to run for vice chairman of the APC South. For whatever reason, they said no, maybe they have zoned it. They said no, this is not how we're going to run. Well, he approached the court. Justice Abdul Malik, similar facts of the case, similar. Said yes, it's the internal affairs of the party. So 2 people wanted to run for office. One judge said yes, he has a right. If there's no consensus, he should be given a chance. The other one said no, it's still internal affairs of the party. One ruling party, one opposition party. What do we make when we marry to some of this judgment?
Now, the April 30th decision of that court regarding Sule Lamido's matter is a bit different from what Justice Joyce Abdul Malik actually said. And of the truth, don't forget that some of these justices or judges, they are also human beings like you and I. depending on how you canvass your case, the situation you present to them, among other issues, will determine the outcome of what you have in court. Now, we, in the case of this ADC that we are talking about, it's about constitutional infractions. And when you look at that of Sule Lamido is complaining that the courts should invalidate the convention of 15th and 16th of November that happened in Ibadan. That is talking about invalidation of convention. While the case that was determined yesterday by the Court of Appeal, they are talking about the Congress's, the expiration of the tenure of the elected officials of the party. So there's a kind of difference between them. And depending on the angle at which you are arguing from. And don't forget, a judge, for example, even if a lawyer has a good case and is not well presented, there is no how you can really determine and decipher where the argument will go. As much as I want to agree that there might be a political undertone in what we had yesterday, but I do not want to agree in total. Depending on the case that is presented by the David Mark-led leadership, I do not want to believe that either ADC or federal government has influenced the outcome of that judgment. Depending on what is presented, depending on the argument that the lawyer who canvassed their case has presented. And of the truth, as they are proceeding to Supreme Court, I know this is going to be a major distraction to African Democratic Congress. It's going to be a major distraction. And naturally, the parties are not actually supposed to even go to court over a matter like this. They are supposed to have a panel, maybe like an appeal panel or administrative panel within the political party. But now that they have exposed themselves into court, you begin to see several twists to it. So that's the reason where you see, and Supreme Court has been fine. CGN has provided a direction that some of these cases should be heard in the nick of time. I'm sure in less than 2-3 weeks, this matter will go to Supreme Court and it will return. I'm very sure it's either neither here nor there, but we can have a landmark judgment that will have as a point of reference that internal party affair should be exclusive business of that political party without having an intervention of courts forcing either a party or a candidate on the political party. So these are just my few thoughts when you consider the two cases side by side. But it's still neither here nor there. But let's just see what is going to come out from Supreme Court.
At least I'm a witness to some of the pronouncement of the Apex Court, which sometimes, with greatest respect, looked evasive. So, for instance, the issue of the suspension of elected officials like governor and House of Assembly members that happened in River State, the Supreme Court did not say the president has the power, neither did they say he doesn't have the power. So, because the substantive issues were not dealt with, then there are issues of you head to the Supreme Court and then you're hearing the Supreme Court literally sending it back to you guys to go and sort out yourselves. So it would be nice to see this pronouncement. I agree with you. But let me come to you, Mr. Adios, we're going to wind down. I'm looking at your constitution because you mentioned that there's nowhere in your constitution. That should be Article 16. I hope I'm correct. This should be Article 16, yeah? Either Article 16, I'll confirm. State Congress, the State Congress shall meet to transact any or all of the following businesses, approve budgets of the party in the state, elect officers of the State Executive Committee. So doesn't that mean that they have a power to, carry out this function as canvassed by this gentleman who took the party to court? Mr. Adio, that's for you.
Sorry, I was muted. Absolutely not. The State Executive Committee do not elect members as executive, I'm not sure what you even read out, as executive members of the party. Was that what you said?
Yes, State Congress, as part of the, I think it's Article 19 of your Constitution. It's Article 19, powers and functions of party organs. So I was reading the powers of the State Congress, which I just listed there in terms of their responsibility.
What I'm saying is that, I'm not sure where you're reading it from, but common sense is that you can't be a judge in your own case. The members of the State Executive Committee are themselves elected. Do you understand? They are themselves elected and so cannot be a judge in their own matter. So that's why I said that it's almost an academic exercise here, because in reality, state congresses are not the purview of state executive committees to set up. You can't be setting up a committee in an election that you are also going to participate in. It just doesn't make any sense. It's exactly why this is typically managed, at the center of the political party. And like I argued earlier again, and I said to you, they have themselves deposed in court that their tenures were supposed to expire by the 12th of May. So exactly what are we debating at this point, when indeed their tenures have expired about 2 months ago, right? So if the argument, for instance, is that, okay, you should not have gone ahead with the convention, the reality is they had gone to court at the time the state congresses were already conducted, and we had not even been served the decision of the court by the time our convention was being held. So I'm not even sure what this entire exercise is about. And, for me, Godfrey, I've been on this program on 2-3 occasions where we've been expending energy on things that, in my view, makes absolutely no sense and does not even edify the public. We're just going around in circles on things that do not matter to the Nigerian people, dealing with frivolous cases that, if you sat down before the old man in your village, are things that can easily be discussed. So, all right. I'm not sure why we're
totally out of time. Unfortunately, these are pronouncements of courts. Whether they make sense or they don't make sense, these are things that emanate from our courtrooms by judexes who sat and made this decision, no matter how reasonable or unreasonable they are, arguably, because I think I saw that judgment which said that until a properly constituted national something, I don't want to quote what is not there. But Doctor, your last take, 30 seconds, and Adio, 30 seconds. We just have 30 seconds each.
For me, courts and judges, they won't have no pronouncement if the political party members, they are not dragging themselves to court. They need to begin to look at internal mechanism within themselves to resolve their issue so that they won't come to court and begin to blame judges, justices, and judiciary system. So, of a truth, if you don't treat either your wife or your children very well, if they go out to begin to complain to members of the general public, you are the one washing your dirty linen in the public. So each political party could look at ways in which they can look at several issues lingering within themselves to resolve it without having any recourse to court, except there is more to it. So I want to hang on there. Thank you.
Adio?
Well, I think for me, I'll just urge members of the African Democratic Congress across the country who have become candidates of the party not to worry. You are on the ballot, irrespective of the decision that has been, reached out in the Court of Appeal. And the reality, obviously, is that we were never elected through a Congress, and to that extent, are not affected by this decision directly. So we should keep doing our work at the grassroots, keep mobilizing, and ensure that the party turns out successful at the polls in 2027.
Thank you so much. For balance, I know that in your constitution as well, the NWC has the power to dissolve state executive and form interim or caretaker, because those who argue that is in your... So maybe we need to look at all of this constitution, because I even looked at a Labour Party constitution one day and I was laughing. That to remove the chairman of the party, the chairman will be the one to call that convention for his removal. Somebody sat down and wrote that law. But I must thank you both for coming on the program. Ayodele Adio, ADC House of Reps candidate for Etiosa Federal Constituency. Dr. Kayode Akintola is the constitutional lawyer, acting Dean College of Law, Christland University. Gentlemen, thank you. And let's tell you that we're expecting 315 Nigerians from South Africa early hours of tomorrow. That is coming in from the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the final phase of evacuation, courtesy of Air Peace. And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.